Admiral Marcus Thompson paced across the polished floor of the Imperial flagship Celestial Crown, his heavy boots making soft thuds against the metal surface. The massive view screen before him displayed Earth, that small blue planet that had been a minor concern for the Galactic Empire for the past 300 years. His gray skin reflected the blue glow from the screen, and his four-fingered hand tapped steadily against his uniform's collar. "Sir, the routine scan is complete," reported Officer James Miller, his fingers moving swiftly across the control panel. "But we've detected something unusual near Jupiter." Thompson stopped his pacing. Every 10 years, the Empire conducted these inspections of Earth's orbital defenses. It was usually a boring task, counting their outdated satellites, checking their small fleet of basic spaceships, and making sure they weren't building anything beyond their allowed technology level. The humans had always been obedient, almost too obedient. "Show me," Thompson ordered, his mandibles clicking, a habit he had picked up from his father, another high-ranking Imperial officer. The screen changed to show Jupiter's massive form. At first, everything looked normal. The great red spot still swirled on the gas giant's surface. Its many moons moved in their usual orbits. But then Miller adjusted the sensors, and Thompson's yellow eyes widened. "That's impossible," he whispered. Behind Jupiter, hidden from Earth's direct view, massive energy signatures pulsed like 1,000 stars. The readings were off the charts. Power levels that the Empire had only seen in their most advanced military bases. "Run the scans again," Thompson commanded, but deep down, he knew the results would be the same. His second-in-command, Officer Linda Roberts, was already running additional scans from different angles. "Sir, the energy signatures are consistent with a large fleet," Roberts reported, her voice steady, but her eyes showing concern. "And these aren't the primitive fusion drives the humans usually use. These readings suggest, well, sir, they suggest technology even more advanced than our own." Thompson felt his heart beat faster. The Empire had classified Earth as a Class 3 civilization, barely able to reach their own moon without Imperial technology. They were supposed to be simple people, grateful for the Empire's protection and guidance. The humans maintained a small defense fleet of just 50 ships, all built with carefully controlled Imperial technology. "Pull up the historical records," Thompson ordered. "Show me every scan we've done of Jupiter in the past 50 years. The data appeared on several smaller screens. Nothing unusual had ever been detected. Either the humans had built this fleet very recently, which seemed impossible given their supposed technological level, or they'd been hiding this from us," Thompson said, more to himself than his crew. "All these years, they've been hiding their true capabilities." The bridge fell silent. The implications were staggering. The Empire had placed numerous restrictions on Earth's technological development, supposedly to protect them from advancing too quickly. They limited their ship numbers, restricted their weapons, controlled their trade with other worlds. And all this time, the humans had been building something massive right under their noses. "Sir," Miller called out, his voice shaking slightly, "we're detecting movement. The energy signatures. They're changing position." Thompson watched as the readings shifted. Whatever was hiding behind Jupiter was starting to move, and based on the energy patterns, it was moving with incredible precision. This wasn't some hastily built secret fleet. These were well-trained crews operating highly advanced vessels. "Send an encrypted message to Imperial Command," Thompson ordered. "Priority level 1. And get me a direct communication line to Earth's Space Defense Council. It's time we had a serious talk about what they've been hiding from us." As Thompson prepared for what would surely be the most important diplomatic conversation of his career, he couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and admiration. The humans had fooled everyone, played the role of the humble species perfectly. Now the question was, what were they planning to do with this hidden fleet, and how would the Empire respond to this shocking revelation? The emergency meeting room aboard the Celestial Crown buzzed with nervous energy as Admiral Thompson replayed the sensor data for the 5th time. 6 other Imperial officers sat around the large circular table, their faces illuminated by the holographic display showing Jupiter and the mysterious energy readings. 300 years, Thompson said, his voice heavy with disbelief. For 300 years, they played us for fools. The historical records floated in the air before them. Images and videos of Earth's apparent technological progress over the centuries told a carefully crafted story. The humans had always appeared to struggle with basic spaceflight. They built bulky ships with obvious flaws, asked for help with simple engineering problems, and gratefully accepted outdated Imperial technology. "Look at this," Officer Roberts said, pulling up footage from just 2 years ago. The video showed Earth's annual space parade, where they proudly displayed their fleet of 50 authorized vessels. The ships were ugly, box-like things that barely managed to maintain proper formation. It was all an act. Thompson remembered attending that parade. He had felt pity for the humans, watching their crude ships wobble through space. Now that same pity turned to cold realization. They had been watching a performance, a play staged for Imperial eyes. "Sir," Miller interrupted, rushing into the room. "We've detected movement again. The fleet behind Jupiter. They're forming some kind of pattern." The hologram shifted, showing real-time sensor data. The energy signatures were indeed moving, arranging themselves into what looked like a massive geometric formation. The precision of their movements was breathtaking. "That's a quantum lock formation," Captain David White whispered, leaning forward in his chair. As the Empire's expert on advanced battle tactics, his words carried extra weight. "That's a formation we theorized but never managed to achieve. It requires synchronization at the quantum level between all ships." Thompson's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "You're telling me they've not only built advanced ships, but they've also mastered techniques we couldn't?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth hadn't just deceived them about their fleet size. They had somehow surpassed Imperial technology itself. "We need to understand their timeline," Thompson continued, trying to think logically. "Show me their technological progression reports." The display changed to show Earth's official development path. Every major advancement had been documented, approved, and carefully monitored by Imperial observers. They had taken decades to achieve what other civilizations did in years, or so it seemed. "Wait," Roberts said suddenly, pointing at a series of dates. "Look at their resource requests. Every time they asked for permission to mine asteroids or establish bases on their moon, they always stayed just under the limits that would trigger detailed inspections. The pieces were falling into place. The humans hadn't been struggling. They had been deliberately moving slowly, staying below Imperial radar. Every apparent failure, every request for help, every primitive design had been calculated to maintain their facade of technological weakness. "Sir," Miller called out again from his monitoring station, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's from their Space Defense Council." Thompson straightened his uniform. This would be the first interaction since discovering their deception. "Put them through," he ordered, "but maintain our shield frequencies at maximum. We don't know what they're capable of anymore." The hologram shifted once more, showing the face of Commander Robert Drake of Earth's Space Defense Council. The human's expression was calm, almost amused. Gone was the usual nervous respect that Earth officials showed to Imperial officers. "Admiral Thompson," Drake said smoothly, "I believe it's time we had an honest conversation about humanity's place in the galaxy." He smiled, and Thompson noticed something he had never seen in a human official before. Complete confidence. "We've maintained this charade long enough, don't you think?" As Thompson prepared to respond, he couldn't help but wonder, how many other secrets were the humans hiding? And more importantly, what were they planning to do now that their greatest deception had been discovered? The holographic meeting between Admiral Thompson and Commander Drake continued in tense silence. The human's calm demeanor made Thompson increasingly uncomfortable. Around him, His bridge crew watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You want to know how we did it, don't you?" Drake asked, leaning back in his chair. The casual gesture seemed almost insulting given the gravity of the situation. "How we built all this right under your noses." Thompson's mandibles tightened. "You violated 17 different Imperial regulations. The penalties for..." "The penalties," Drake interrupted, actually laughing. "Admiral, I don't think you understand the situation. Let me show you something." The hologram split into two views. One showed Drake, while the other displayed a massive hangar bay that stretched far beyond what should have been possible. Inside, rows upon rows of ships stood ready. But these weren't the clumsy vessels Earth usually displayed. These ships were sleek, almost predatory in their design, their hulls gleaming with a material Thompson had never seen before. "That's impossible," Officer Miller whispered from his station. "Our scans show this facility is under the lunar surface, but the moon's core readings have always been normal." Drake nodded approvingly. "Quantum space folding. We've been hiding entire cities and shipyards in folded space pockets for the last 200 years. Your sensors couldn't detect them because, technically, they don't exist in normal space." Thompson felt his heart skip a beat. Quantum space folding was theoretical even for the Empire's best scientists. "How?" was all he could manage to ask. "Would you believe it started with paper origami?" Drake said, his eyes twinkling. "One of our scientists was folding paper cranes when she realized the mathematics behind the folds could apply to space itself. The Empire was so focused on energy weapons and shield technology that they never considered looking into something so simple." The display changed again, showing more hidden facilities. Each revelation was more shocking than the last. Massive shipyards orbiting in Jupiter's radiation belt, completely shielded from detection. Construction facilities inside Venus's hostile atmosphere. Entire fleets hidden in the sun's corona. "But the technology we gave you," Thompson protested. "The drive systems, the shield designs, were studied, improved, and eventually discarded," Drake finished. "Did you really think we build our future on hand-me-down technology? Every piece of primitive equipment we showed you was carefully crafted to look exactly as advanced as you expected us to be. No more, no less." Officer Roberts was frantically analyzing the new data streaming in. "Sir, these ships, their hull material isn't just armor. It's alive somehow. It adapts and learns." Drake nodded again. "Biometallic adaptive alloy. Another simple discovery. We found it in deep-sea bacteria near thermal vents." The Empire was so convinced that advanced materials had to be artificially manufactured that they never considered looking to nature for inspiration. The revelations kept coming. Earth's ships didn't just match Imperial technology. They had surpassed it in ways that seemed impossible. Their weapons didn't rely on brute force, but on subtle manipulations of physical laws. Their defense systems didn't just stop attacks. They redirected the energy for their own use. "Why reveal this now?" Thompson finally asked, trying to process everything he was seeing. Drake's expression became serious for the first time. "Because it's time for change, Admiral. The Empire's policy of technological suppression hasn't just held Earth back. It's held back countless species across the galaxy. We've watched, we've learned, and we've prepared. Now we're ready to help reshape the galaxy into something better." As if to emphasize his words, the massive fleet behind Jupiter began to move. Thousands of ships emerged from hiding, each one a masterpiece of engineering that shouldn't have been possible. They moved in perfect synchronization, forming patterns that seemed to bend the very fabric of space. "This isn't a rebellion, Admiral," Drake said softly. "This is an evolution. The question is, will the Empire evolve with us, or will it become another relic of the past?" Thompson stared at the display, watching as humanity revealed its true power. In just a few hours, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy's balance of power had been turned upside down. And somehow, He knew this was just the beginning. The Imperial Council's emergency broadcast filled the Celestial Crown's command center. 12 stern faces of the Empire's highest leaders floated in the air, their expressions ranging from outrage to barely concealed fear. Admiral Thompson stood at attention, feeling the weight of their stares. "This is beyond a simple treaty violation," High Counselor Reed declared, his scaled face flushed with anger. "This is the greatest deception in Imperial history." Thompson watched as his censor officer, Miller, quietly raised his hand. "Sirs, you need to see this. The humans, they're doing something with their fleet." The holographic display shifted, showing the massive human fleet near Jupiter. The ships were moving again, but this time they were doing something unprecedented. Each vessel began to emit a soft, pulsing blue light that seemed to connect them all in a web of energy. "What are we looking at?" another counselor demanded. Before anyone could respond, Commander Drake's hologram appeared again, this time alongside the council members. He hadn't requested permission to join the meeting. He had simply bypassed all Imperial communication security, as if it didn't exist. "What you're seeing," Drake explained calmly, "is a demonstration. Watch carefully." The connected human ships began to move in perfect unison. Suddenly, the space between them seemed to ripple, like heat waves over hot pavement. Then, in a display that defied physics as the Empire understood it, the entire fleet vanished. "Impossible," several counselors shouted at once. "Scan the system," Thompson ordered quickly. "Find them." Officer Roberts worked her controls frantically. "Sir, they're everywhere. They're appearing and disappearing all across the solar system. Mars, Venus, Mercury, even near Earth's moon. It's like they're in multiple places at once." Drake smiled. Quantum superposition applied to large-scale objects, another impossible achievement, according to Imperial science. "Would you like to know how many of these fleets we actually have?" The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. If humans could place their ships in quantum superposition, they could effectively multiply their fleet size at will. "You can't expect us to believe that a Class 3 civilization achieved this on their own," High Counselor Reed said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," Drake agreed. "You shouldn't believe we're a Class 3 civilization at all. That was your first mistake. While you were classifying and categorizing species based on your understanding of technological progress, we were exploring possibilities you never considered." Thompson watched as more displays lit up around him. Each one showed different human achievements that had been hidden away. Stations that could harvest energy directly from quantum foam. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships that could communicate instantly across any distance without relying on conventional signals. "Here's what's going to happen," Drake continued, his voice firm but not threatening. "The Empire's policy of technological suppression ends today. Not just for Earth, but for every species under Imperial control. You dare dictate terms to the Empire?" A counselor sputtered. "We're not dictating. We're offering a choice." Drake gestured, and a new hologram appeared. It showed a detailed plan for reforming the Empire's approach to developing civilizations. "We've prepared a comprehensive proposal for a new system, one that encourages cooperation and shared growth rather than suppression and control." High Counselor Reed leaned forward. "And if we refuse?" Drake's expression remained neutral. "Then we'll have no choice but to demonstrate just how far beyond your control we've really grown. Remember, what you're seeing is just what we're willing to show you. Ask yourselves, what else might we be capable of?" The implied threat hung in the air. Thompson looked at the sensor readings again, watching the human fleet continue its impossible dance through space-time. They had hidden this power for centuries, playing the role of an obedient, primitive species. What other secrets were they still keeping? "You have one standard day to begin implementation of the reforms," Drake said simply. "We trust you'll make the wise choice." His hologram vanished, leaving the Imperial Council to face a reality they never could have imagined. 6 hours into the Empire's decision period, Admiral Thompson found himself in his private quarters aboard the Celestial Crown, reviewing historical records with new eyes. What he discovered made his heart sink even further. Display Earth's technological assistance requests from the past 50 years. He commanded his personal computer. The air filled with floating documents, each one a carefully crafted piece of humanity's grand deception. He selected one from 20 years ago, a request for help with basic shield technology. At the time, it had seemed like a primitive species struggling to understand simple concepts. Now, Thompson noticed the subtle brilliance behind her questions. They hadn't been asking for help. They had been mapping out the Empire's understanding of physics. Officer Roberts' voice came through the intercom. "Sir, you need to see this. We've discovered something in the old mining permits." Thompson made his way to the analysis room, where Roberts had laid out a complex pattern of Earth's resource-gathering activities. On the surface, they had always stayed within their allowed quotas. But the pattern. Look at the mining locations. Roberts pointed to a three-dimensional map of the solar system. When you connect them across time, they form a perfect geometric pattern. They weren't just mining. They were building something massive. What were they building? Thompson asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. A quantum communication network, a new voice answered. They turned to find Commander Drake standing in the doorway. Not a hologram this time. He had somehow transported himself aboard the Imperial flagship without triggering a single alarm. "How did you?" Thompson started. "Get here." Drake smiled. "The same way we've been moving undetected through your territory for the past century. You see those mining points?" He gestured to the map. "Each one is now a node in a network that spans not just space, but time itself. We can step from one point to another as easily as you walk across a room." Thompson's security team had their weapons drawn, but Drake seemed unconcerned. "Those weapons," he said casually, "were outdated by our standards 200 years ago. Please, let's talk civilized." The security team looked to Thompson, who nodded reluctantly. As they lowered their weapons, Drake walked to the central display and waved his hand. The map transformed, showing layer upon layer of hidden networks throughout the solar system. "While you watched our surface activities, this is what we were really building," Drake explained. "Each mining operation placed quantum anchors that we used to build a transportation network. Every time you approved a new mining site, you were actually helping us expand our reach." Robert studied the display with a mixture of horror and admiration. "The annual resources reports were exactly what you expected to see," Drake finished. "We gave you the numbers you wanted, showed you the basic ships and technology you expected, all while using the extracted resources to build something far beyond your imagination." "But why?" Thompson finally asked. "Why maintain this deception for so long?" Drake's expression turned serious. "Because we learned from history. Every time the Empire discovered a truly advanced civilization, they either tried to conquer it or destroy it. We couldn't let that happen. So we played the long game. We studied your weaknesses, your blind spots, your assumptions about how technology should develop." He walked to the window, looking out at Earth floating in the distance. "Your Empire believes in linear technological progress. Step 1 must lead to Step 2, and so on. But we discovered that's not how the universe really works. Sometimes you can jump from Step 1 to Step 100 if you just think differently." "Like your quantum space folding," Thompson said, beginning to understand. "Exactly. While you were perfecting bigger engines and stronger weapons, we were learning to slit between the spaces you didn't even know existed. Every piece of primitive technology we showed you was carefully crafted to hide our true capabilities." Drake turned back to face them. "The truth, Admiral, is that humanity hasn't been a Class 3 civilization for over 200 years. We've been waiting, watching, and preparing for the right moment to help the galaxy evolve beyond the Empire's limited vision." Thompson looked at the displays again, finally seeing the full scope of humanity's achievement. They hadn't just built a secret fleet. They had created an entirely new way of existing in the universe. With just 10 hours remaining until Earth's deadline, the Imperial Palace on the capital world of Nova Prime was in chaos. The High Council chamber had been in continuous session for hours, its members arguing fiercely about how to respond to humanity's revelation. "We could gather the Imperial Defense Fleet," suggested one counselor, his hologram flickering with nervous energy. "We have ships stationed in 20 sectors." High Counselor Reed laughed bitterly. "Did you not see what their ships can do? They exist in multiple places at once. They fold space like paper. Our entire fleet would be like bringing stones to a starship battle." The massive screens surrounding the chamber showed various human ships, demonstrating abilities that frightened even the Empire's top scientists. One vessel had just phased through an asteroid without disturbing a single atom. Another had created a small artificial sun, apparently just to prove they could. Meanwhile, aboard the Celestial Crown, Admiral Thompson and Commander Drake stood watching Earth's fleet perform increasingly impossible maneuvers. That ship, Thompson pointed to a sleek vessel that had just emerged from what appeared to be its own shadow. "How does it do that?" Drake smiled. "We call it shadow walking. Turns out, dark matter makes an excellent transportation medium if you know how to surf it. One of our scientists discovered it while watching her cat chase a laser pointer." "A cat?" Thompson's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Simple things often lead to the greatest discoveries," Drake explained. "That's something the Empire never understood. You were so focused on grand, complex solutions that you missed the elegant simplicity of the universe." Their conversation was interrupted by a new alert. One of Earth's ships had positioned itself near Mercury, and it was doing something extraordinary. "Sir," Officer Roberts called out, "the human vessel. It's moving Mercury." The entire bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the small ship extended what looked like a beam of pure darkness. Slowly, carefully, the planet began to shift its orbit. "Gravity manipulation," Drake said casually, as if moving planets was an everyday occurrence, useful for mining, terraforming, and of course, demonstrating capabilities to stubborn empires. The implications hit Thompson like a physical blow. If humans could move planets at will, what else could they do? The Empire's power had always been based on its technological superiority. Now, that foundation was crumbling. Back in the council chamber, the debate had turned desperate. "We cannot submit to their demands," shouted one of the older counselors. "The Empire has stood for 10,000 years. And perhaps," said a younger member quietly, "that's precisely the problem. We've stood still while others learned to dance between the stars." New reports kept flooding in as Imperial analysts discovered more of humanity's hidden achievements. They had bases in other dimensions. Their ships could communicate across galaxies instantly. They had solved problems the Empire's scientists hadn't even discovered yet. On the Celestial Crown's bridge, Drake was still explaining human advances. "See that ship there?" He pointed to a vessel that seemed to shimmer like a mirage. "It exists in 12 dimensions simultaneously. Your sensors only pick up the 3-dimensional shadow it casts in our space." Thompson shook his head in wonder. "And all this time, we thought we were teaching you." "Oh, you did teach us," Drake assured him. "Every piece of technology you shared showed us what not to do. Every restriction you placed on us forced us to think creatively. Your Empire's greatest contribution to human advancement was trying to prevent it." The main display suddenly lit up with a priority message. The Imperial Council had reached a decision, well ahead of the deadline. Thompson read the message, then looked at Drake. "They're accepting your terms, all of them. The Empire will end its policy of technological suppression." Drake nodded, unsurprised. "Good. Now the real work begins." "Real work?" "Of course," Drake smiled. "Did you think this was just about freedom from Imperial control? No, Admiral. This is about helping every species in the galaxy reach their true potential. Humans won't be your overlords. We'll be your teachers. As if to emphasize his point, the human fleet began another impossible maneuver, their ships dancing through dimensions in a display that made mockery of everything the Empire thought it knew about physics. 1 month after Earth's revelation, Admiral Thompson stood in the newly constructed Galactic Learning Center on Mars. The massive facility, built in just 3 days using human technology, stretched across an entire valley. Through its transparent dome, he could see Earth's ships still moving in their impossible patterns across the solar system. Remarkable, isn't it? Commander Drake approached, watching a group of young Imperial officers learning from human instructors. A month ago, they wouldn't have believed any of this was possible. The Learning Center was filled with representatives from every corner of the Empire. Species that had been kept at low technological levels for centuries were now learning things that even the Empire's most advanced scientists were struggling to understand. That group there, Thompson pointed to a classroom where tentacled beings were studying what looked like a miniature galaxy floating above their desk. They were a Class II civilization last month. Classifications. Drake shook his head. Another Imperial mistake. There's no such thing as a primitive species, only primitive thinking. Watch this. They approached the classroom. The alien students, a species called the Mist People, were discussing theories about dimensional folding that would have been considered impossible under Imperial doctrine. They developed this theory in 2 weeks, Drake explained. Once we showed them how to think beyond traditional physics, their natural understanding of gas dynamics led them to insights even we hadn't considered. Across the facility, similar scenes played out. Species that the Empire had deemed too primitive for advanced technology were making breakthroughs in quantum mechanics, dimensional engineering, and technologies that didn't even have names yet. "Sir," Officer Roberts approached them, her face excited. "You need to see this. The Mist People and the Crystal Beings have just collaborated on something extraordinary." They followed her to a testing chamber. Inside, a swirling cloud of purple mist interacted with crystalline structures in ways that bent light and space itself. The two species had combined their natural understanding of their environments to create an entirely new form of faster-than-light travel. 1 month, Thompson said quietly. In 1 month, they've achieved what the Empire couldn't in 10,000 years. Because you tried to control progress, Drake explained. You thought advancement had to follow a specific path. But look there. He pointed to another classroom where Imperial scientists sat like students, learning from a holographic display showing the mathematics behind shadow-walking technology. Your scientists are learning something developed by a human watching her cat. The Mist People created a new form of space travel by applying their understanding of gas dynamics. The Crystal Beings revolutionized energy storage by simply being what they are. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. But these weren't danger alarms, they were discovery alerts. The Learning Center had them installed to announce major breakthroughs. Another one? Thompson asked. The fourth today, Drake smiled. Let's see what they found. They rushed to a research lab where a team of mixed species, Imperial, human, Mist Person, and Crystal Being, had just discovered how to manipulate time at a quantum level. It's beautiful, Roberts whispered, watching as the team demonstrated their discovery. Time visibly flowed like water around a small test object, speeding up, slowing down, even reversing. This is why we hid our advancement, Drake said. Not because we wanted to deceive you, but because we needed to show you a better way. Look around. This is what happens when species work together, when knowledge flows freely. Thompson watched as more discovery alarms sounded across the facility. In just 1 month, the galaxy had advanced more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. And this was just the beginning. The Empire will never be the same, Thompson said. That's the point, Drake replied. The old Empire was about control and suppression. The new galaxy will be about cooperation and discovery. Every species has something unique to contribute. They just needed the freedom to do so. As they watched another breakthrough being celebrated, This time, a group of young Imperial cadets working with mist people on dimensional physics. Thompson finally understood. Humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their technology or their fleet. It was showing the galaxy that impossible things happen when you stop believing in limits. The new era had begun, and there was no going back.